let's start with Sunday. Sunday morning, you woke up. Did you know that you'd be surfing that day, or were you just planning to work? What was the story?
I knew I was going to be surfing. I was an invitee, so I had all my stuff ready, but I knew I had to work as well. And I knew it was going to be a really busy day. So we tried to get there early, but traffic was just crazy first thing in the morning. I drove down with my family and we got to Foodland and traffic was not moving. So I jumped out of the car and ran to Waimea from Foodland. It's only about a quarter of a mile or so, but it took her about a half an hour to move that quarter mile to get to the parking lot.
Crazy. So what was your, first of all, do you actually work at Waimea?
I'm still one of the lower guys in the seniority list, so I don't have a set tower.
Okay.
I kind of just move all around on the North Shore still.
Got it. So what was your schedule that day? Where were you supposed to be working, and how are you going to fit in your heats?
I was scheduled the captain told me about 4 or 5 days before to work Waimea because he knew it was going to be big, and I guess he trusts me to be at the beaches when they're big. And then once I knew that the contest was going to run, I talked to my captain. I was like, oh, I need to make it legit. So I had to use my vacation leave hours, a few vacation leave hours, so that I wasn't surfing on the city time. I was surfing on my own time.
Gotcha. And were you working in between your heats?
Yeah.
Insane.
I was there. I don't know if you've seen some of the accidents that happened, but there was 2 surfers that got pretty bad cuts, and I was there to get the gauze on them, stop the bleeding, and then get them to a higher level of medical attention for them to be treated. And then there's a couple rescues, people getting washed into the river. And then there's a few big sets on the left side of the bay. Like huge waves coming up and washing through the crowd and then hitting the rocks and like making a backwash wave and almost trying to suck people into the shore break. Yeah, it was quite a busy day.
It seems impossible. How do you focus on an event while you're doing all of that?
Yeah, I think it really helped because I'm not a very good contest surfer. I get all the butterflies and nervous and what are they doing? What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? This and that. And well, since I was at work, it was kind of just like any other big day where I would work and then on my break I go surf. And then yeah. So it kind of kept my mind off of the competing aspect of the contest and just there to enjoy it and have fun.
Fascinating. Watching the event and even the replays, you were clearly on the bigger, cleaner waves that day. What was your strategy at the start of the event, and then how did you execute it?
My strategy was to have fun and be safe because the waves were very dangerous that day. I do have my lineups that I like to sit at that I am comfortable sitting at, and then I see there's a certain look to waves that I like to go on. They give you a nice entry in, and hopefully they're smoother on the face. And it just seemed to work out in my advantage. And yeah.
It seems like the other guys out in the lineup know that spot really, really well, and they'd be looking for those waves as well. Were you sitting deeper out than any of them, or what?
I was actually sitting a little wider on the shoulder. I think everyone was really trying to like push the limits that day, because where I sit, I feel like I'm somewhat deep, and everyone was way deeper than I was. And I was like, I hope it doesn't look bad for the beach, like I'm sitting on the shoulder or something, but it worked in my favor.
Is it like maybe only on the bigger days like that those wide ones actually come, or?
Yeah, it's not necessarily that it's that much wider. It's just when it is bigger, there's like the main boil when it's the 20-foot size, but then when it does go to the 20 to 25-foot size, there's another boil that's just a little bit farther out and not quite as deep as the main boil, but it's still right like It's a good entry line.
Gotcha. Can you talk about your familiarity with Waimea? How long have you been surfing it? How many times a year do you surf it? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I surf Waimea fairly regularly. Uh, I mean, as regular as we get big swells, which is not all the time, but when we do, um, I don't really like to surf it in the 15-foot size because it is so crowded, and that makes it that much more dangerous. I like to go to other places when it's around that size. But when it is the 15 to 20-foot size, then it starts to kind of thin out the crowd. People are a little more it's not so you can just paddle right out in a huge channel to get out. When it's that size, you have to know what you're doing a little bit.
Yeah.
Which helps the crowd out. So whenever it's that size, I'm pretty much always out there. The first time I surfed Waimea, I was 13, I believe, 13 or 14. Wow. And was on a 9.4 single fin.
Okay. Tell me about the board you were riding on Sunday.
On Sunday, I was riding a 10.04 fin. It's a super brand board. I was sponsored by them for a few years. The board is about 5 years old, maybe 6 years old. But I'm not exactly sure who the shaper is.
Gotcha.
But it's one of the people that were under Super Brand.
Right. Yeah, that board looks like it's been ridden a lot.
Yeah, it's one of my go-tos when it gets big.
Gotcha. Yeah, it looks like, I mean, obviously in big surf like that, you want to be able to rely on your board. But with my normal short board, when it starts looking like that, I start getting off of it because it just loses some of its resilience, obviously, and just starts to feel dead. What's your experience with big wave boards? I mean, obviously you want to be able to depend on it, but is there a point where it becomes not dependable?
It's big wave boards are a little different. They're glass heavier. They're made a little stronger because the waves will break them to pieces if they're not.
Yeah.
So they seem to last quite a while and do real good.
Yeah. Bit longer lifespan.
Yeah, as long as they don't break or buckle,
Gotcha.
Stay in good shape.
Gotcha. Back to the course of the day, you're surfing heats and you're obviously coming in and working in between your heats. How did you celebrate that night after you found out that you won? What did you do that evening?
I went home and ate some pizza and went to sleep. I was worked. It was a long day for me.
And you had work the next day, right?
Yep, back to work the next day.
Have you been able to enjoy any of it? Has it even sunk in?
It is definitely starting to sink in now. My dad's birthday was actually the next day, so
oh my gosh.
We went out Wednesday night because I was off the following day. And we had a birthday dinner, a little celebration dinner with me, just my family. And we went to Ahilimo and Haliva and had some really good food, and it's really good.
Good. The most poignant element of this story is the fact that you are a lifeguard. And obviously Eddie was a lifeguard at Waimea Bay, the first lifeguard on the North Shore. Do you know the Aikau family personally?
Yes, I'm good friends with Aikau, Uncle Clyde's son.
Okay.
I'm too young to know Eddie personally, but I've heard the stories my whole childhood growing up, and what a good human being he was. He was a real life superhero.
Totally.
From being the first lifeguard at Waimea Bay to having kind of a perfect record, as what I've heard, never lost a life while he was on duty. Yeah, it's really, really inspiring.
More about the day of the event. Was that the biggest Waimea you've surfed?
in 2016, when the year that got me invited to the Eddy was fairly similar size, but that day was probably the most consistent, biggest I've seen it. Like every other set seemed to be a closeout set, or just about.
Yeah.
And condition, the winds and the swell direction were really, it all came together and made it really beautiful. Like
Yeah.
It was really groomed. Sometimes when it gets really big like that, it gets there's kind of just so much water moving around in the bay that it is kind of a little bit out of control. People are still surfing, but it's not as it's not as it's not as picturesque. It's a little more wild and rolly. But that day was very beautiful for pictures and looked as great as could be.
Yeah. What are you going to do with the airline miles and the 10K?
I'm gonna take the family to go see our grandparents in California.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's a great usage.
Yeah, really stoked on that. I've been trying to figure out how to do that, and now I got the free flights and money to go see the grandparents and have a little bit of fun in California.
Amazing. I thought for sure you were going to say surf trip, but I like that answer better.
Yeah, now I gotta figure out how to get some time off of work.
Right.